I am the living destiny of the empire, the embodiment of its very fortune. Even the emperor wouldn't dare to cross me. But on the eve of our wedding, the crown prince Ethan tried to force me to call it off. I agreed. I was done with that jerk. So I decided it was time for a new crown prince. My name is Mia Shaw. I was born into a common merchant family. When I was 6, a wandering monk came to our home asking for a drink of water. At that age, all I cared about was snacks and playing. I was hugging my mother's leg, begging her for candied apples. She gave in and promised to take me out to buy some. That's how we ran into the old monk at our front door. The monk looked at me, murmured a prayer, and said, "This child's eyes are strange. Everywhere she looks, disaster follows. If you want your home to be safe, you must destroy those eyes." My father believed him. So did my grandparents. They brought out an awl to blind me. My mother nearly lost her mind. She threw herself in front of me, pulling a pin from her hair and threatening to stab anyone who came near. Back then, my father still had some affection for my mother. He finally compromised and just had my eyes covered with a silk blindfold. And so at 6 years old, I began to live in darkness day and night. Because of my eyes, my parents' relationship fell apart. My father soon took several concubines, who gave him a whole brood of half-brothers and half-sisters. My mother poured all her energy into me and couldn't be bothered with my father. But seeing my mother so passive, the concubines grew bolder. One day, a pregnant concubine came to flaunt her status in front of my mother. While trying to protect me, my mother was pushed into a pond by that woman. She never came back up. My mother was dead. My father and grandparents all called me a curse, a jinx who had killed her own mother. As a child, I didn't know what a curse was. All I knew was that my cruel father wanted to blind me, my grandparents despised me, and even the servants looked down on me. My mother was the only one who had ever truly loved me. I might have been blindfolded, but I wasn't stupid. I knew that with my mother gone, staying in the suffocating Shaw estate meant certain death. So I ran away that night. I tore off the white silk, and under the cover of darkness, I crawled out through a hole in the wall. The long street was shrouded in darkness, utterly silent. I looked up at the stars, took a deep breath to steady my nerves, and prepared to pick a random direction to begin my escape. But as I looked up, I suddenly saw a man in white standing nearby, watching me with a smile. His white robes seemed simple, but they were embroidered with countless elegant patterns in fine silver thread. His long black hair flowed behind him, and his aura was cool and noble, like the bright moon in the sky. I stared at him, confused, and couldn't help but ask, "Who are you?" Then I heard him laugh. "I am the royal advisor, and you are the apprentice I have been searching for 10 years. I became the royal advisor's apprentice. My master took me to the imperial palace and gave me a home in the astral palace. He was so kind to me, always speaking in a gentle, measured tone, as if he were afraid of frightening me. Here, no one saw me as a disaster, and no one withheld my food. I changed into the white robes worn only by disciples of the astral palace, and thought they were the most beautiful clothes in the world. My master told me I wasn't an ordinary person. I was a being formed from the purest spiritual energy in the world, the living fortune of the Ethel Empire itself. In simple terms, I was the embodiment of the nation's destiny. I was born with true sight, which allowed me to distinguish good from evil and to know the future. If I was wronged, the empire would suffer endless calamities. If I died by accident instead of old age, the empire's destiny would be severed, and the nation would fall. I suspected he was just making up a story to comfort me. "Master," I asked, "how did you know I was the nation's destiny? I don't seem any different from other kids." He smiled and patted my head. "Mia, do you know why our Ethel Empire is the greatest in the world?" I shook my head, looking at him expectantly, hoping he would explain. My master smiled. "Because the wife of our empire's founding emperor was herself a woman who embodied the nation's destiny. My master said that as the nation's living destiny, my safety was more important than even the emperor's. I could do whatever I wanted in the palace. If anyone treated me poorly, I just had to tell him. He also said that when His Majesty returned to the palace, he would take me to get rewards, including a royal token that would excuse me from bowing to anyone. Although I hadn't formally met the emperor, My master held an apprenticeship ceremony for me. He said my identity as the nation's destiny had to remain a secret. The ceremony gave me official status in the palace, a layer of protection so that ordinary servants wouldn't dare to offend me. Because my master treated me so well, some servants even whispered that I wasn't his apprentice at all, but the emperor's long-lost daughter. If the truth of my identity weren't a secret known only to the emperor and the royal advisor, I think my master would have built me an altar, hung a sign around my neck that said nation's destiny, and ordered the entire world to be nice to me. Unfortunately, my good fortune didn't last. I'd only been in the palace for a few days, not even long enough to try out this doing whatever I want thing, when I was swinging on a swing in the imperial garden. A royal concubine called me a little witch and stormed over, threatening to gouge my eyes out. She had a whole entourage of maids and eunuchs who lunged for me. I bolted. My hair ribbon flew off, my clothes were torn, and I lost a shoe somewhere along the way. Luckily, my luck held out. I stumbled right into the second prince, Ethan. He was my age but incredibly clever. He hid me behind a rock formation and sent the servants chasing me away. I wasn't hurt, but I was so frightened that I came down with a high fever that night. I was delirious and barely aware of what was happening, though I sometimes heard my master and another stern-sounding voice discussing my condition outside my door. After I recovered, I learned that my illness had caused it to rain in the capital for half a month, flooding many of the crops. If the capital hadn't been situated on high ground, the entire palace might have been submerged. On top of that, a rare plague of locusts had descended upon the Southlands, devouring countless fields. The breadbasket of the empire was facing a year with no harvest. Since this all happened just days after I arrived, my master was furious. I heard the emperor had the concubine who threatened me put to death immediately. After I got better, my master said he would take me to see the emperor, but he didn't give me any instructions on royal etiquette. Terrified of messing up and causing trouble for my master, I secretly asked a maid from the astral palace to teach me the basics. On the day of the audience, I followed my master, my heart pounding. Just as I was about to bow my head for a full kowtow, the emperor stopped me. "Mia, there's no need for that." I looked up, stunned, and saw the emperor actually stand up from his throne. He moved in a hurry, and his tone was almost frantic, as if he'd been terrified of something. Blinking in confusion, I nodded. For a strange moment, I got the feeling that he was scared I would actually kneel. Seeing my confusion, my master gave a helpless smile and gently patted my back before exchanging pleasantries with the emperor. But after just a few words, the conversation turned back to me. When the emperor heard about the difficult life I'd had before my master found me, he assigned 2 royal chefs and 2 imperial physicians to the astral palace specifically to look after my health. Then came a flood of gifts, chests overflowing with gold, silver, jade, and pearls. Bolts of silk and brocade filled 2 entire storerooms. His Majesty even assigned one of his personal shadow guards to me. Not even the emperor's most favored son, the first prince, had ever received such lavish rewards. It was obvious the gifts were because of my status as the nation's destiny. At first, I didn't think anything of it. Then the emperor gave me a jade pendant. "Mia," he said, "seeing this pendant is the same as seeing me. In this palace, you need not bow to anyone." I felt a prickle of unease but couldn't figure out why. Then I remembered what my master had said. The wife of our empire's founding emperor was herself a woman who embodied the nation's destiny. The founder of the Ethel Empire was known as the first emperor. He rose from being a beggar in a chaotic era to sitting on the throne, a journey filled with legendary tales. But his empress was a mysterious figure. Even storytellers in the tea houses tended to mention her only in passing. I tossed and turned all night. The next morning, I ran to find my master. "Master, you said the first emperor's wife was the nation's destiny. The emperor, he doesn't want to make me his concubine, does he?" "Please no," I thought. The emperor was in his 40s, and I was only 10. My master paused, then shook his head with a smile. "Mia, I know what you're worried about. Don't be. His Majesty will not make you his concubine." I let out a huge sigh of relief. But then he continued, "If nothing unexpected happens, you will one day marry one of the princes." "Which prince?" I asked. He beamed, patting my head. Mia, whichever prince you choose will become the crown prince. You will be his princess, and one day, you will be the Empress of Ethel. You are the most precious woman in the world, and you deserve the very best of everything. I never would have expected such a turn of events. My master smiled and stroked my hair. You're still young, Mia. There's no need to rush things. I nodded, thinking he was right. I still had years before I turned 15. I returned to my room, lost in thought, just as a maid was bringing my breakfast. As I picked up my chopsticks, a dark figure suddenly dropped down from the rafters. I jumped. When I got a good look, I saw it was the shadow guard the Emperor had assigned to me yesterday. Without a word, he took a set of silver needles from his sleeve and tested each of my dishes. Then he produced a pair of silver chopsticks, took a small portion from every dish, and tasted them one by one. Only after confirming the food was safe did he say in a slightly raspy voice, "My lady, you may eat." "Why do you call me my lady?" I asked. "You are the heir to the astral palace," he replied. "Therefore, you are my lady." I nodded, then asked, "What's your name?" He knelt on one knee, bowing his proud head. "Please grant me a name, my lady." For some reason, a name popped into my head, and I blurted it out. "Then your name will be Caden." Caden was still a boy, only 2 years older than me, but he was terrifyingly skilled. His personality, however, was a bit cold. According to Caden, he was the best of his class in the Shadow Guard training camp. I asked him how good he was. He said his peers were still slogging it out in the camp, while he had already graduated and become an official Shadow Guard. I was impressed. Having such a powerful guardian made me happy. I secretly considered Caden a friend. I'd even call him out from the shadows to eat with me. After enough begging on my part, my master even allowed Caden to listen in on my lessons. After all, Caden would only ever have me as his master. The more he learned, the better he could serve me in the future. My master taught me literature, calligraphy, music, strategy, classics, astronomy, geography, medicine, and the art of divination. I was born with a photographic memory, so I learned quickly. My natural talents as the nation's destiny began to emerge. Just as my master had said, I was the heart of the nation's fortune. I could not only discern good from evil and see the future, but even the very land itself seemed to favor me. Whatever I wished for, I could make happen. By the time I turned 15, my reputation had spread far and wide. Everyone knew of the young woman named Mia Shaw in the Astral Palace. They said she was as beautiful as a celestial, the final apprentice of the great royal advisor, and now the official heir to the Astral Palace. She was skilled in everything from astronomy to calligraphy, and had even inherited her master's legendary abilities in divination and medicine. I may not have had a family to back me, but I had the royal advisor. Suddenly, the Astral Palace was flooded with noble women hoping to arrange a marriage for their sons. But I was destined to marry a prince. Those ladies were bound to be disappointed. I have to admit, the emperor and his consorts were all very good-looking, so their sons were uniformly handsome. First Prince Gavin, 18, was as stern and upright as his name suggested. He was decisive and sharp-edged. As the empress's firstborn son, his status was impeccable. Not only that, but the empress's father was the prime minister, which guaranteed him the support of many court officials. He was the most likely candidate for the throne. Second Prince Ethan, 16, was gentle and refined. He treated everyone with kindness, even the servants, and was exceptionally learned. Unfortunately, his mother was concubine Iris, who was not favored by the emperor, and her family had no influence. His chances of becoming emperor were practically zero. Fourth Prince Asher, 15, was nothing like his peaceful-sounding name. He was a complete troublemaker, climbing trees, chasing birds, and getting into all sorts of mischief. But for someone so wild, his academic performance was surprisingly good. His mother was the royal consort, whose father was the commander of the southern armies. If he wanted to, he could definitely make a play for the throne. As for the younger princes, they weren't worth mentioning. Logically, I should have picked between Prince Gavin and Prince Asher, but I found myself drawn to Prince Ethan. Besides our dramatic first meeting, the second time I saw him was on a rainy day. He was wearing a simple, light-colored robe and holding a paper umbrella, standing elegantly on the stone steps by a rock garden. The rain was pouring down. His black hair was damp on his shoulders, and even his eyelashes glistened with moisture, giving him a fragile, glass-like beauty. I saw him looking around for something, so I walked over. "What are you looking for in this downpour?" Ethan recognized me and looked down. "I'm looking for my jade pendant. You've probably heard of them, the ones every prince has." I noticed his shoes were soaked and his shoulders were damp with rain. I frowned. "You could have a servant do this. Or at least wait until the rain stops. Why search for it now?" His expression was gentle. "It's an important token. I'd rather find it myself." It dawned on me then that since his mother wasn't favored, it probably wasn't easy for him to command servants. He had to search for it himself. I couldn't help but shake my head. At this rate, he was going to catch a cold. He had helped me once, now it was my turn to help him. I discreetly used my divination skills and knew the pendant wasn't here. It was to the southeast. "Come with me," I told him. Ethan was confused but followed me anyway. A short walk later, we arrived at a pond. My eyes are different from others, so I could immediately see a faint purple aura emanating from a spot in the water. His pendant must have fallen in. I pointed to the pond. I did a quick divination. "Your pendant is in the water." Ethan stared at the surface, seeming to hesitate. "The water isn't shallow," I added. "And it's cold and rainy today. You should probably leave it and have a guard retrieve it another day." But Ethan shook his head. "Thank you for your help, Lady Mia. Now that I know where it is, I must find it today." He then took off his shoes and outer robe, placed them in a nearby pavilion, and with a splash, jumped into the water. Even with my guidance, it took him a while of searching underwater before he finally found the pendant. He was completely drenched and looked pathetic when he climbed out, but he was clutching the jade as if it were a priceless treasure. Once on shore, he bowed deeply to me, his voice choked with emotion. "Thank you, Lady Mia. I will repay your kindness one day." We parted ways, but the next day, I heard that Prince Ethan had fallen ill with a high fever from his time in the water. His mother, concubine Iris, begged every physician in the palace for help, but none of them could guarantee they could cure him. On a whim, I casually mentioned it to my master. He saw right through my little scheme, but just gave me a knowing look. "Very well. I will go to the second prince's residence and take a look at him." My master's medical skills were far superior to the court physicians, so curing Ethan was a simple matter for him. A few days later, a guard from the Astral Palace informed me I had a visitor. I went to see who it was and found Prince Ethan. He was still recovering and looked much thinner. He was holding a food box. When he saw me, he smiled. "Lady Mia, thank you. My mother made these pastries herself as a token of our gratitude." His smile was as warm as the spring sun, and it melted into my eyes. From that day on, we saw each other more and more, and Ethan and I grew close. I later learned that his pendant had fallen into the pond because several younger princes had been bullying him. They'd thrown it into the water, but told him they'd hidden it among the rock gardens. When I'd found him that day, he had already been searching for a long time. If he hadn't run into me, he probably would have kept looking forever. I felt a pang of sympathy for him, but I also knew that for a prince with no real power, it was better not to make waves. Remembering how he had protected me from the servants who wanted to hurt me when I first arrived, I started looking out for him. Almost immediately, life for Ethan and concubine Iris improved dramatically. After we became friends, I discovered that while Ethan was normally gentle and polite, he had a childish side when we were alone. He would take me boating in the Imperial Garden to sneak lotus pods. We'd pick wild fruit in the unfinished Grand Palace, secretly release sky lanterns on clear nights, and hide behind a stone bridge to go fishing. These were all things I had dreamed of but never had in my own childhood. The days I spent with Ethan were the happiest of my life. Our bond grew deeper, and we even exchanged tokens of our love. Ethan told me he wanted nothing more in this life than to be together, just the two of us, forever. Without a doubt, I fell for him completely. I was in love with Ethan. My choosing Ethan meant the nation's destiny had chosen him too. Before, the three main princes had all possessed a similar golden aura of kingship. But from the day I fell for Ethan, his aura began to grow brighter and stronger. The nation's fortune smiled upon him with incredible favor. With this blessing, everything Ethan did went smoothly. With me devising strategies, managing his finances, and winning over officials for him, Ethan's power base began to grow. When a war broke out in the north, the commanding general found himself trapped. The three princes were sent to provide aid. I gave Ethan access to part of my master's intelligence network. Just as I expected, Ethan's military genius shone on the battlefield, completely eclipsing even Prince Gavin. A man favored by destiny is unstoppable. It was as simple as that. The emperor was overjoyed to hear the news of victory from the northern front. After a long talk with my master, he decided it was time to name a crown prince. The very next day, an imperial edict was issued, naming Ethan the crown prince and me his crown princess. I was ecstatic. I had a magnificent gown prepared and eagerly awaited the day of his triumphant return. When Caden reported that Ethan seemed to be involved with the daughter of General Vance on the northern front, I didn't think much of it. He was stationed there, it was inevitable he would interact with the general. I wasn't going to get jealous over something so trivial. But I never imagined that my trust, my anticipation, would all be thrown back in my face. When Ethan returned, he brought back not only honor and glory but also a woman, General Vance's daughter, Claire. Of course I was unhappy, but I didn't rush to confront him. I thought maybe the general didn't want his daughter suffering in the frozen north, and had asked Ethan to bring her back to the capital. But after Ethan settled Claire comfortably in the general's estate, visited his father and mother, and even checked in on his siblings, he still didn't come to see me. Then on the 5th day after his return he finally came. But what awaited me wasn't the tender warmth between lovers, but a crushing blow. Mia, Ethan said, Claire and I are in love. I stared at him, unable to believe my ears. For so long, my entire world had revolved around him. Ethan had been the unfavored prince with no money and no connections. I was the one who had painstakingly built his fortune. I was the one who helped him amass a significant private treasury, and used my status as the heir to the Astral Palace to build alliances for him with court officials. His mother, concubine Iris, was also neglected. In the winter, she couldn't even get high-grade charcoal, and the meals from the royal kitchens were cold by the time they reached her. I was the one who put the fear of God into the head of palace administration, and found an excuse to discipline the kitchen staff, so that she could live comfortably. From the moment I fell for Ethan, he was all I could see. I knew the man I married would one day be emperor, so everything I did was to ensure Ethan had the resources to inherit the throne. And now, I felt like a joke. I looked at him coldly. So, everything between us, all our promises, have you forgotten it all? A flicker of conflict crossed his eyes, but it was quickly replaced by indifference. Mia, I am the crown prince. To secure this position, only the Vance family can help me. Oh, so he hadn't forgotten. It was just that now that he was crown prince, the only thing he could see was power. How ridiculous. It seemed Ethan truly had no idea how he'd gotten that title in the first place. My emotions were a chaotic mess. Despair, pain, sorrow, and a bitterness I couldn't name all washed over me. I looked at Ethan. It was the same familiar face, but now it seemed like a stranger's. I clenched my fists. Ethan, are you sure about this? If you betray me, there's no turning back. He shook his head. Mia, for the sake of our past, go to my father and call off the engagement. I'm the crown prince now. If I'm the one to break it off, it will damage your reputation. My reputation? I thought. No, he was afraid people would point fingers at him, the crown prince, and say he was a social climber. That's why he wouldn't do it himself. By now, I had calmed down and saw things clearly. Ethan, I said, if you really want to end this, go tell the emperor yourself. He frowned. Mia, don't push your luck. You may be the royal advisor's apprentice, but you're not worthy of being my crown princess. If you break it off yourself, it will be better for both of us. I never thought that after all our years together, it would end with him still trying to manipulate me. If I called it off, he'd get away scot-free, right? In his dreams. I was furious. Ethan, get out. Caden had appeared in front of me at some point. He stared coldly at Ethan and gestured for him to leave. Ethan actually looked like he might try to fight me, but Caden's intimidating presence made him back down. He spat out hatefully, Mia, you're nothing but an unlucky merchant's daughter. Who do you think you are, dreaming of becoming the crown princess? Go take a look in a mirror. Are you even worthy? By some twist of fate, the emperor had just arrived at the astral palace to discuss my wedding with my master. He was right outside my courtyard and heard every single word. He flew into a rage, stormed in, and slapped Ethan across the face. You monster! What did you just say? Say it to my face again. The blow sent Ethan sprawling. He seemed stunned, sitting on the ground for a second before scrambling to his knees. Father! I looked up and saw the emperor's face was beet red with fury. My master stood behind him, his brows knitted together, looking at Ethan like he was a piece of trash. Without sparing Ethan another glance, I walked past him to stand before the emperor and my master. Mia, what is going on? The emperor asked. I looked at Ethan kneeling on the ground, my feelings a complicated knot. My voice, however, was flat and emotionless. The crown prince says he and Lady Claire, the general's daughter, are in love. He is asking me to step aside and let them be happy. Hearing this, the emperor started trembling with rage. His face turned ashen, his eyes burning with fury as he stared at Ethan. If looks could kill, the emperor was probably thinking, I don't even dare to offend the nation's destiny, and you have the audacity to bully and humiliate her like this? The emperor's chest heaved several times before he managed to catch his breath. Suppressing his anger, he asked Ethan, Is this true, my son? Ethan steeled himself. Father, I was young and foolish before. It wasn't until I met Claire that I knew what love at first sight truly meant. I am genuinely in love with her. I beg you to grant us your blessing. As he spoke, he bowed his head low, completely missing the profound disappointment and anger in the emperor's eyes. I saw the emperor's chest rising and falling violently, looking like he was about to have a stroke. Afraid he might actually die of anger before he could help me annul the engagement, I quickly said, Your Majesty, I have no desire to force the crown prince. Since he has made his feelings clear, I ask that you grant my request and dissolve this marriage. The emperor seemed to want to salvage the situation. He turned to my master, his tone pleading. Royal advisor, what do you think? My master's gaze was icy, offering the emperor no way out. Ethan's disloyalty makes him unworthy of being Mia's husband. There are plenty of good men in this world. I will find a better one for her. The emperor looked between me and my master with a complicated expression. He sighed, knowing the matter was settled. He nodded reluctantly. I have wronged both you and Mia in this. Since Mia wishes to end the engagement, then so be it. Right then and there, the emperor wrote a decree annulling my marriage to Ethan. The moment the imperial seal was stamped, I saw the excitement flash in Ethan's eyes. Did he think that with the engagement broken, he could now marry Claire and solidify his position as heir? Our years as childhood sweethearts meant less to him than the title of crown prince. But I was grateful. At least now I saw Ethan for who he truly was. He was not fit to be the crown prince. Although the emperor didn't strip Ethan of his title on the spot, my master and I both knew it was only a matter of days. The emperor would soon find some excuse to remove him. For now, let him enjoy his little victory. What's that saying? The higher you fly, the harder you fall. Breaking up with Ethan, seeing years of affection go up in smoke, it would be a lie to say it didn't hurt. But I didn't really want a man who could be so easily stolen anyway. So this time, the annulment didn't cause any major disasters. It was just a few days of strong winds that knocked over some trees, followed by a few days of heavy rain. Fortunately, no one was hurt, and the crop losses weren't severe. I had Caden send people to monitor Ethan's every move and report back to me with every detail. What I learned almost made me sick. As soon as our engagement was broken, Ethan and Claire became inseparable. They were disgustingly lovey-dovey, stuck to each other like glue. And Ethan's mother, concubine Iris, put on the perfect future mother-in-law act. Every time Claire visited, she would dip into her personal savings, money she never dared to spend, to buy expensive dishes from the royal kitchens to entertain her. It was laughable. She had always been so lukewarm to me, and I had just assumed that was her personality. I'd never seen her this enthusiastic, not even when the emperor visited. I only read a few of the reports before I couldn't stand it anymore. I told Caden, go tell the head of the royal kitchens and the palace administration that for concubine Iris's household, they should revert to the old arrangements. Yes, my lady. Caden didn't ask why. As he turned to leave, his back seemed to radiate a hint of glee. A couple of days later, I heard there was trouble in concubine Iris's residence. The food delivered from the royal kitchens was arriving stone cold. As the crown prince's mother, she felt her status had changed and refused to tolerate such disrespect. Ethan tried to stand up for his mother, but when he confronted the kitchen manager with his princely authority, he was completely shut down. The manager insisted that the maids from Iris's residence had been lazy and late, causing the food to get cold. It wasn't the kitchen's fault at all. Since neither the prince nor his mother could prove it was intentional, the matter was dropped. But things were never that simple. The staff had endless ways to make a master's life difficult. Slowly but surely, the quality of life for both concubine Iris and Ethan began to decline. Ethan wanted to make an issue of it, but the staff at every department had perfectly reasonable excuses ready, leaving him speechless. As a newly appointed crown prince, he didn't dare act too rashly. If he gave them any cause, he could be impeached by the court ministers. Ethan had probably never given the palace staff a second thought. He didn't realize that they were often the ones who knew best who the real master of the palace was. On paper, I was just the heir to the astral palace, but the sheer volume of gifts and special treatment I received, both openly and behind the scenes, far surpassed even my masters. To put it bluntly, all the princes and princesses combined didn't enjoy the same level of honor I did. In the summer, I got the first pick of ice. In the winter, the finest charcoal was mine. Even the first share of tribute fruits, vegetables, and rare treasures from across the empire all went to me. Especially after my breakup with Ethan, the emperor felt so guilty and was so afraid my bad mood would trigger a catastrophe that he sent a constant stream of gold, jewels, silks, jades, and antiques to the astral palace. My storerooms were overflowing. There was no going back for me and Ethan, but at least the emperor knew how to make amends. After receiving enough compensation, I decided to let it go. I'd just consider those years of devotion a total waste. Besides, the thought of Ethan being kicked off his princely pedestal was pretty satisfying. So apart from my required studies, I spent my days researching the best restaurants and the most fun places to visit, living a life of leisure. Without having to worry about that heartless bastard Ethan, I felt a huge weight lift off my shoulders. Meanwhile, without the nation's favor, Ethan's life became a series of misfortunes. His carriage would crash into shops, a meteor would fall into his bedroom, and he'd even chip a tooth drinking cold water. Now I was just waiting for him to be dethroned. It was going to be a spectacular show. Sure enough, less than a month after our engagement ended, the emperor found a flimsy excuse, improper conduct in the royal presence, and stripped Ethan of his title as crown prince. Ethan, of course, was not willing to accept it. He tried to get the ministers he had won over to plead his case, but most of those ministers had only supported him because of me and the astral palace. Now that our engagement was off and Ethan had clearly fallen out of favor with the emperor, they all paid him lip service but did nothing to help. In the end, despite his struggles, his title was revoked. He couldn't understand why the ministers who had promised to support him had suddenly turned into fair-weather friends. He ran around desperately, hoping they would help him reclaim his position for old time's sake. But how could he possibly succeed? He had only been crown prince for a few days. The money and manpower he'd had before were all from me. Now without me, without his title, without money, and without the emperor's favor, why would anyone support him? Because of Claire, who wasn't even his fiancée yet. But now that he was no longer the crown prince, the Vance family would have to be insane to marry their daughter to him. The first and fourth princes were both capable candidates with strong foundations. Why would they choose Ethan over them? What I never expected, however, was that after losing his title, Ethan would become so desperate and hysterical that he would stage a coup. Seeing no hope of becoming crown prince, he threw caution to the wind. Using his connection with Claire, he borrowed her family's military token and stormed the palace. First, Ethan killed all of the emperor's other sons. Then, he forced the emperor to write an abdication decree. By the time I heard the news, it was too late. Ethan's mother, concubine Iris, had somehow managed to gather all the princes in one place. With her working from the inside, Ethan's men were able to kill them all. Caught completely off guard, not a single prince survived. Hearing that the emperor was trapped in the royal study, my master and I split up. I would stall for time while he went to summon troops. In a one-on-one fight, Ethan's men were no match for Caden, but they had numbers on their side. I never planned to fight them head-on. I had a soldier guarding the study deliver a message to Ethan. Tell the second prince that I know a secret that will determine whether he can inherit the throne. The soldier didn't dare keep such a vital piece of information to himself and reluctantly reported it. Ethan was furious. Let Mia in to see me. I walked calmly into the royal study and saw the emperor held hostage at his desk by two soldiers. Beside them stood a grim-faced Ethan and Claire. The emperor had lost all his royal dignity and looked like he had suffered a devastating blow. When he saw me, it was as if he'd spotted a lifeline. Mia, is it true what this monster says? Are all my sons? I nodded grimly. Your Majesty, it's true. All the princes have been killed. The emperor couldn't believe his ears. He collapsed into his chair, his fingers trembling. In that moment, I heard the emperor's thoughts. He didn't want to pass the throne to this ruthless, cold-blooded creature. But he couldn't resist. He had no choice. I sighed. Ethan, it's not too late to stop this. Ethan looked at me with contempt. I hear you've inherited the royal advisor's gift for divination. Why don't you predict for me today? If I take the throne, will the Ethel Empire last for 1,000 generations? Claire let out a sneer, her eyes full of scorn. The royal advisor's gift? Just a bunch of cheap tricks. At that moment, the emperor, sitting at his desk, finally snapped. Enough. His furious gaze fell on Ethan. How could I have raised a son like you? Being scolded, Ethan's face darkened. Before today, their relationship had always been one of a loving father and a dutiful son. When had it ever been like this? But the emperor wasn't finished. Your mother, Iris, is a fool. I gave her that title hoping she would grow a brain. I thought you were different, but you're even stupider than she is. I'm telling you, Ethan, even if you kill me today, you will not touch a single hair on Mia's head. If you do, not only will I not forgive you, but our ancestors will not forgive you either. Ethan's breathing became ragged. He hadn't believed me before, but seeing the emperor's reaction, he started to think that my ability to decide the next crown prince might actually be real. After all, he had lost his title so bizarrely, and the emperor's high regard for me was far beyond what he had ever anticipated. He couldn't help but glance at Claire. He didn't actually love her. He just wanted her family's military power. Claire noticed the shift in his attitude and sneered. Ethan, you were the one who knelt before my father and begged to marry me, swearing you would treat me well for the rest of your life. I didn't force you. Ethan's eyes were red, a vein throbbing on his forehead. He looked like he was about to explode. I could see he was losing his composure. Enough. Ethan's eyes were practically shooting fire. He must have lost his mind with rage and shame, because he lunged at me, looking like he was about to strangle me. Perfect. I had been deliberately provoking him, waiting for this exact moment. Without hesitation, I delivered a swift kick right to his jaw. The impact sent him crashing to the ground. Claire's face changed, and she rushed forward to grab me. As a general's daughter, she was a skilled fighter. Several soldiers charged at me alongside her. But I wasn't afraid of them. As if by magic, I took a light step back, and Claire and the soldiers all tumbled into a heap. They fell hard and couldn't get up. I went around and knocked each one out to be safe, then grabbed the unconscious Ethan and dragged him out like a sack of potatoes. Ethan has been captured. I announced loudly. Lay down your weapons, and you will be treated with leniency. Otherwise, you will all be executed. The emperor followed me out. When the soldiers below saw that the emperor was unharmed, they knew the rebellion had failed. My master had already arrived with troops, and the place was surrounded. No one was stupid enough to resist. They all reluctantly dropped their weapons. Just as I said, if they were smart, only the leaders would be executed as an example. But if they resisted, they would all be wiped out. The rebellion was over. But the princes were truly all gone. Except for the traitor Ethan, not a single one was left. After throwing Ethan, Claire, concubine Iris, and all the rebels into the dungeons, the emperor wept over the bodies of his dead sons. You monster! What have you done? What a tragedy. He cried, his heart broken. I sighed and looked up at the starry sky. Your Majesty, please accept my condolences. The Emperor's tears wouldn't stop. After a long while, he looked at me and my master with pleading eyes. His voice was hoarse. Royal advisor, Mia, I won't pass the throne to that animal, Ethan. Is there another way? My master answered diplomatically, Your Majesty, you have many years ahead of you. There will be other princes in the future. He was telling the Emperor to get busy making more heirs. But the Emperor shook his head. After this, I am weary. I just want to train a successor as soon as possible, become a retired emperor, and spend my days traveling. That would be a peaceful life. My master and I exchanged a look of helpless resignation. It seemed the Emperor had truly lost all hope. My master frowned. If Your Majesty is unwilling to wait, then the only option is to adopt a child from the royal clan. Suddenly, the Emperor seemed to remember something. His voice grew excited. No, I won't adopt. I have another child out there. My master and I looked at each other again. Every person has a destiny star, especially members of the royal family. We had both performed divinations for the royal family many times, but the results had never shown that the Emperor had a child living outside the palace. My master did a quick calculation and shook his head. If what Your Majesty says is true, then a powerful expert must have concealed the child's fate. I cannot find him. He then looked at me. Mia, with your status, perhaps you can find a clue. I nodded and performed a divination. According to the signs, I could confirm that such a prince did exist, but his location was shrouded in a fog. I frowned. Your Majesty, I can tell he is alive, but I can't find out where he is. Do you have any other clues? If we have something to go on, we might be able to track him down. The Emperor's eyes lit up. Yes. I have her address. When I was touring the south, she longed for freedom and refused to return to the palace with me. I never imagined that fate would have her be the one to preserve my last son. I did a rough calculation of when the Emperor had toured the south and concluded that if the young prince had survived, he would be a year or two older than me. Damn it. Perfect marriageable age. The funeral arrangements for the princes were handled by professionals. Ethan's case was taken up by the courts. My job was to find out where the last prince was. It had been over a decade, making the investigation difficult enough, but it also had to be kept strictly confidential. I didn't dare delegate it. And then there was the matter of me having to marry the new crown prince. Just thinking about it gave me a headache. Caden noticed I was in a bad mood and spent the next few days sneaking me snacks from the royal kitchens. He stole from the Emperor, the Empress, even the Empress Dowager. He brought me all my favorites: crab roe pastries, peach blossom cakes, rose tarts, fish-shaped cookies, one plate after another. I ate them all and gained 5 pounds in just a few days, all thanks to him. I had to eat nothing but vegetables for a week to lose the extra weight. But the distraction helped. I didn't feel so sad anymore. When Caden asked why I was down, I said, Caden, do you think a life that's already been planned for you is a kind of tragedy? He shook his head and for once said more than a few words. A shadow guard's life is also a predetermined fate. But I believe, being able to protect the person you want to protect is a very fortunate thing. I fell into thought. Are you worried about the lost prince? He asked. I didn't want to admit it, but I nodded. I was wrong about Ethan. But ambition aside, he was still one of the most refined gentlemen in the capital. His intellect and temperament were acceptable. But a prince raised outside the palace, there are so many variables. Who knows what kind of person he'll be? What if he's a scoundrel or a gangster? I sighed again. Before I at least had a choice. Even if Ethan was a jerk, I could have chosen another prince. But now there's only one option left. A dark glint flashed in Caden's eyes. I felt a surge of killing intent from him for a split second, but it vanished so quickly I thought I might have imagined it. I looked at him, puzzled. But he just bowed his head. My lady, it's late. You should rest. My people failed to find the prince, so I decided to go myself. With Caden by my side and my national destiny level protection, my master and the Emperor were confident in my safety. But remembering Caden's strange behavior that day, I still felt a little uneasy. I privately warned him, if that lost prince turns out to be a real jerk, You are not to do anything on your own. I have my own ways to get out of the marriage. You are very important to me. If I lost you because of some lowlife, I would be miserable for the rest of my life. Caden hadn't expected me to see through his plan. He mumbled his agreement. Following the clue the Emperor gave us, we found the house where the woman had once lived. But now a family of 3 lived there. The husband was exceptionally handsome. According to the neighbors, the house had previously belonged to the man's sister. After she disappeared, the clan elders gave the house to him. I watched from a hiding spot, but the moment I saw the man, I froze. He looked almost exactly like Caden. Caden was just as shocked. The resemblance was too strong to be a coincidence. I had no doubt that if Caden aged another 20 years, he would look identical to this man. After some more inquiries, I learned that the man and his sister were twins and looked almost identical. I couldn't help but look at Caden. That face. If Caden took after his mother, then he was very likely the Emperor's lost son. Thinking about it, the age seemed to match up too. I was floored. I quickly did a divination to check the familial connection between the family in the courtyard and Caden. The result was startling. A mysterious fog shrouded Caden's fate, just like the lost prince. I could get a vague sense, but nothing clear. The feeling was all too familiar. I stared at Caden dumbfounded. He stared back, equally bewildered. Finally, I found a protective amulet on him. It was this amulet that had been obscuring his aura and preventing me from getting a clear reading. The moment I removed it, the golden aura of kingship radiating from him nearly blinded me. It was true. Caden was the lost prince. After that bombshell, the atmosphere between Caden and me completely changed. He was destined to be the crown prince, and I was destined to be his crown princess. We had known each other for years and had a deep understanding, so we didn't need many words to process it. I couldn't help but sigh. You've been by my side for so many years, and it never once occurred to me to do a reading on you. I should have discovered this ages ago. Caden was just as surprised by the outcome. I was too young back then. I don't remember my mother much, only that I was sold to the Shadow Guard camp. I sighed, did another divination based on the clues we had, and said, your mother is still alive. After she lost you, she was so devastated she nearly went mad. She searched for you for many years before finally becoming a nun. Caden and I found the convent where his mother was living. Perhaps the bond of family truly can transcend time and space. The moment they saw each other, they recognized one another instantly and embraced, sobbing. We took his mother from the convent and settled her in a house in the capital. When I heard that Ethan was about to be executed, I made a point to bring Caden with me for a little visit. I kindly informed him of Caden's true identity and the wonderful news of our upcoming engagement. Finally, I said, Ethan, all you had to do was honor our engagement, and you would have secured your position as crown prince. But you let power go to your head. Do you regret it now? Lying on the straw in his cell, Ethan flew into a rage and started cursing wildly. Concubine Iris just cried. Claire stared blankly into space. Seeing their bitter expressions, a small smile touched my lips. I turned and walked away, side by side with Caden. Life was peaceful, and I had finally found someone who would cherish me. A couple of years after Caden and I married, the Emperor abdicated and became the Emperor Emeritus. He offered Caden advice from the shadows, but no longer involved himself in politics. Caden ascended the throne as Emperor, and I, of course, became the Empress. One day, I said to him, I've been away from my hometown for many years. I want to go back and see it. Caden knew my story and didn't hesitate. I'll go with you. I nodded, happy to agree. We shed our fine robes for faded commoners' clothes and returned to the Shah estate, pretending to be down on our luck. I said I was deathly ill and had no money for medicine. I begged my father, for the sake of our family ties, to give me 5 silver coins for a doctor, promising I would never bother him again. But my father looked at me, cursed me for being bad luck, and told me to get out. My grandparents treated me like a viper and even ordered their men to beat Caden and me to death with clubs. Looking at their hateful expressions, I finally let go of the last shred of affection I had for them. I smiled. Showing disrespect to the Emperor and Empress, and attempting to assassinate them, it seems the Shah family has no reason to exist anymore. Execute the entire family. Before the words had even left my mouth, black-clad shadow guards and royal soldiers stormed the courtyard. I looked at the terrified faces of my father and grandparents and shook my head. What a pity. The Shaw family makes tens of thousands a year, yet you couldn't even spare 5 silver coins. If you had shown me the slightest bit of kindness just now, you would have had a daughter who is an empress and a son-in-law who is an emperor. With that, Caden and I walked out of the estate together. The sounds of wailing and repentance echoed behind us, but I didn't hear them. Caden hugged me and whispered, "Mia, they are not your family." "I am." I nodded. "And make sure the concubine who pushed my mother is executed by 1,000 cuts," I told him. "Not 1 cut less." Of course. I found a plot of land with excellent feng shui in the capital, and had my mother's coffin moved there. As for the Shaw family, they became the biggest joke in the history of the Ethel Empire. A cautionary tale recorded in the annals for all time. Later, Caden and I had 5 children, 4 sons and a daughter. Under our rule, the Ethel Empire grew stronger than ever, with nations from all over the world coming to pay tribute. Caden never took another wife. We loved each other for our entire lives, and our story became a legend for future generations.